He served as president and CEO of BitTorrent Incorporated, where he was responsible for an ecosystem of software, devices, and protocols that moved between 20 and 40% of the world's internet traffic on a daily basis. From there, he co-founded Resilio Incorporated, which spun out of BitTorrent Incorporated to bring the power and resilience of distributed solutions to the modern enterprise. Please welcome to the stage Mr. Eric Klinker.
Great. Well, thank you. It's probably shouldn't do that. So it's fabulous to be here with you again in Sofia. This is such a wonderful town and such a great place to hold a conference like this, which it seems to be getting bigger and better every year. I don't know how they do it. Obviously, the success is partly in your hands. So maybe just a quick show of hands. How many folks were here at Webit last year? So high retention is a sign of a very good product, so that's actually quite a bit of people. I myself was here last year as well, and at the time, as you heard in the intro, I was still the CEO of BitTorrent, but I had already been thinking about the changes that we're seeing inside IT and how computing itself is becoming cheap and ubiquitous and soon will be everywhere. And the world at that point in time will look very different than it does right now. So we spun a company out, and I started this company called Resilio to focus on enterprise applications of the core BitTorrent technology for reasons that hopefully I'll make a little bit clear in the next few minutes. So I start with the notion that, for IT in particular, say what you want, but it's really, really good at one thing. It reliably produces cheeky metaphors and buzzwords to help explain the things that we've always been doing. So in this way, putting a bunch of computers in a room called a data center, this is a concept as old as computing itself, is suddenly the cloud. And the cloud is easily the most successful IT buzzword that we've ever seen. It's transcended everybody's modern day vernacular. I think everybody would agree this is pure marketing genius. And if we have the cloud, what about a world where computing is everywhere and BitTorrent is also everywhere, helping bring this computing to life? What would we call this world? And I think if a data center and a computer up in the sky is the cloud, then BitTorrent is more like fog. Thick, pervasive, everywhere, local. A thick layer that blankets the internet. A tech soup, if you will, of pure processing power all around us. So, maybe some of you in the room are now beginning to come to understand why I don't really have a successful career in marketing. But nevertheless, I think this is a concept that I want to explore a bit. How can we bring this computing at the edge to life in a way that makes it more powerful? So, title slide, from clouds to fog, this trend from the cloud to the edge and what it means for edge computing and IT. So I'd like to start with history. I love history, and I think I've come to the right place for a bit of history. I've seen some amazing things in Sofia that date back to the Byzantine Empire, and even before that, the Roman Empire, and even before that, ancient kingdom, Thrace, I think it's called. Amazing place, but also in computing, we have quite a bit of history as well. And we've seen over time a pendulum that swings from the centralized core of the network to the edge over and over again, back and forth. And it starts in communication. If you think about the earliest communication network that really blanketed the globe, it was the phone network. It was a monopoly. It was owned by one company. And because it was so tightly controlled, innovation was practically impossible on this network. You couldn't really do anything that the phone company didn't want you to do on it. So as a result, not unexpectedly, it really didn't change for about 100 years. And that network, fortunately, was replaced by the pendulum swinging in the other direction to a network called the internet, which is the exact opposite of the phone network. It was distributed. It was open. Permissionless innovation was possible on this network. And clearly you see these two ecosystems and the value that was created in both of them, and you'd say the internet vastly more powerful at creating opportunity and wealth. And everybody in this room, right, we wouldn't have all worked for the phone company, but today we're all in some way involved in the internet. And that pendulum swung very, very far towards the internet to where it today dominates almost all communication. But what did we do with this gift that we were given, this beautiful distributed system where all the power lived at the edge of the network? What did we build on it? And I think here you see the pendulum swinging back again. We built things like Google and Facebook and Twitter and Amazon. These are all centralized things that honestly look more like the phone network than they do the internet. Power here is consolidated in those corporate entities. These four gatekeepers own our digital life. We have very little power on the edge of the network. So I think it's safe to say that the pendulum has swung very, very far in the other direction. And you see very little interest, at least commercially, in building applications on the internet that look like the internet. But I think there's still a possibility. I think history will show, if we give it time, that the pendulum will swing back again. And when I was still the CEO of BitTorrent, we focused almost entirely on building distributed applications on the edge of the network that looked more like the internet, that were decentralized, that were putting power back in the hands of the users. From uTorrent, I assume some people in here maybe have used uTorrent, I won't ask, to applications like BitTorrent Sync, which were decentralized versions of Dropbox and Google Drive, where they were completely private, completely distributed, and putting the power in the hands of the user. So that's on the network. What about computing? Well, computing itself has seen the same shifts, right? In the early days of computing, we had mainframes. They sat in the core of the network in a special room called a data center. We didn't call it cloud. And it was centralized computing, all lived in one place. But of course, the pendulum swung again. And combined with the internet, the PC era pushed computing out to the edge, to the desk. Everybody's desk had a computer on it at that point. And that, in turn, swung back again. And while mobile very much lives at the edge of the network, the processing power of your average early mobile device was so low that it had to be combined with cloud computing to be useful. So all of the processing of the web apps lives in the cloud, and in reality, mobile computing is really a centralized computing exercise. But again, I think we can see the pendulum swinging, right? We can see IoT coming, and we can see a world where edge computing may finally come to life. And we will probably have more computing power and more computers, processors, on the edge of the network by many orders of magnitude than we will have in data centers in the core of the network. So I think this future is coming. The pendulum is swinging. So how are we going to deal with that world? So if you're an investor today, you are very focused on the cloud, and it's very difficult to convince an investor that cloud isn't going to continue to eat the world. And if you looked at the current trends, you'd have to agree with them, right? Everything that we see today shows power being consolidated in the cloud. For all of these reasons, and probably half a dozen more, cloud computing, very, very powerful concept, and one that is dominating the present mind of every technician, every investor, probably even a few entrepreneurs as well. But if you were a contrarian investor, you might see the pendulum is really, really far to the core. Maybe it's time to short the cloud. Maybe the real opportunity is when the pendulum moves again to the edge. Because there are clearly signs of stress. The cloud probably, even from just a technical perspective, can't continue to do what it does. And you have reasons for this that are pretty obvious if you think about it. So on the edge in the processing world, computing is driven by this wonderful thing called Moore's Law, which basically says that computers are going to get cheaper and more powerful, and they're going to do it exponentially over time. And that's going to mean there's going to be a lot more computers. We've just talked about it. IoT means there's going to be more computers at the edge. But it's also going to mean that these computers will produce and consume much more data than they could before. So that's going to create a lot of data. But what about the third leg of this stool? Data by itself isn't useful if you can't network it to other computers to do useful things with it. What about the network? Well, the network is more like infrastructure. And infrastructure is built with tools like backhoes. Backhoes don't obey Moore's law. They don't double in productivity every 18 months. If they did, it'd be wonderful, but they don't. So what you'll see and what you have seen over time is a diverging gap between the amount of data that we can generate on the edge of the network and the capacity of the network to deliver that data to the places that we need it. And that stress will be felt very acutely in the cloud. So we've just talked about a few of these trends, and I think they're pretty obvious. Like, show of hands, who believes that data will get smaller on the internet? I rest my case. Nobody believes this. Computing power is obviously going to grow at the edge. There's going to be many more computers. And we just talked about the reason that the network will struggle to connect this world together. That's going to be a fact of life. Other things that are driving challenges, of course, are the need to centralize all the computing in one place creates massive scaling challenges. I mean, we could put enough computers in data centers and build enough data centers at great expense and great effort. And if I had the budget of Google, I can do this for a while longer to support computing trends like mobile. But IoT is going to add 2 or 3 orders of magnitude more computers onto the internet. Can we really continue to scale data centers like we do now? Is this old way of thinking, client-server, really the right way to keep doing this? And of course, the cloud needs to service things that it will ultimately struggle, especially real-time application needs. The cloud isn't going to be your best choice. And perhaps the best example here will be this world where autonomous vehicles are real and at scale. Everybody's in them. They're all essentially edge computing environments. They are all high-res 3D mapping machines. They are collecting data as they drive, lots of it, gigabytes per mile driven. They are processing this data with probably hundreds, if not more, onboard processors. It's impractical for an autonomous car to query the cloud to ask it if I should run over that pedestrian that I see 100 meters ahead, because the cloud's not going to answer in time, especially if I'm out of cell phone coverage, which I often am in my car. I still don't know why. So it's obvious that things like autonomous vehicles and other opportunities at the edge are going to require a very different way of thinking. And if we continue to build this cloud-centric world, these kinds of projects will struggle to come to life in a way that keeps everybody safe. And I hope we do that. So in general, that's one example of life on the edge. But if you try to generalize life on the edge, it really does come down to 3 really big problems that have to be solved. There are many more, but these are 3 that at the top of the list. Big data. Obviously, data is getting bigger. And these vehicles and other opportunities all drive on data. They live on data. That is the lifeblood of these applications. And it also happens to be the lifeblood of almost every business, old or new. Every business is putting more and more IT out there to make their business more effective, more efficient, and obviously better. So all of that is driven by data. Data is what makes these businesses work. They're going to be doing it on a massive scale as well. There are many industries today that operate on massive scale, but as more and more computing becomes localized, scale becomes a very big challenge. And we just got done talking about how networks will continue to be the weak link in this entire chain. So these 3 things, big data, at scale, over bad networks. If only we had a technology that could move big data, like maybe like full-length high-definition movies. And if only we had a technology that could do it to maybe a big scale, like hundreds of millions of consumers all over the world. And moreover, could do it on networks that aren't really that good, like networks maybe that existed in 2001. Probably many of you are too young to remember what the internet was like in 2001, but it was nothing like the internet we have today. So obviously we have a technology like that, and we have had one for years. It's called BitTorrent. And we believe this mesh networking technology hits all 3 of those problems in precisely the best way to solve problems at the edge. It's clearly the most resilient way to deliver technology. It's clearly very successful at scale. It's clearly very successful at moving big data, and it can do it over any network, especially the worst. Good or bad will fill whatever network you have. So with this technology in my pocket, we wanted to see as Resilio what kind of edge opportunities existed. And I'll tell you a story. I mean, we spun the company out thinking we'll immediately go attack autonomous cars, a typical Silicon Valley bad, blinders on. Autonomous cars are going to be nice and interesting, but there's like maybe a handful of them in the world today. Clearly not a problem at scale. And even smart cars like Teslas, okay? The company's somehow worth more than Ford and GM, maybe even combined, but there may be 100,000 Teslas in the world. They're clearly not shipping anything at scale yet. So those are good opportunities, and I think they will be great opportunities, but they're not the edge opportunity today. They're not the big opportunity today. And when we looked at the broader market, taking a step back, we found that there are many environments out there that face these three challenges already. They probably don't think of themselves as edge computing problems, but they are. These might be industries like retail, where I might be a fast food chain and I need to get really big data out to 43,000 global locations for McDonald's or KFC. I might be a media company where I am in a remote shoot in Brazil, and I've just created the most amazing footage. It's really, really big. It's raw, and I need to get it to my post-production shop in New Zealand. What kind of network do I have between here and New Zealand? Technology like BitTorrent is perfect for this as well. It might be vehicles. Now, okay, not autonomous cars, but there are a lot of IT on a lot of vehicles even today. We have a few airlines that have deployed us to push things like navigation and flight data out to get data off of aircraft. Aircraft generate gigabytes of data every flight hour. No easy way to move it. They might be on trucks and trains. They could be fire trucks, or it could be police cruisers. It could be dash cam videos. It could be maps. It could be hazmat material. It's oftentimes IT systems. How do I get a 15 gigabyte image out to a new computer that I want to deploy on a truck over internet that might be there or it might not be there? There are lots and lots of opportunities on the edge today. And when we formed Resilio, we immediately saw these and obviously had a lot of interest coming to us right away on day one. Opportunities just like this, but more generally, anybody that had big data over bad networks. And I think our mission is more succinctly said as empowering the edge. We want, and we've always wanted, to put power back in the hands of the people at the edge. And we're fortunate to be able to do that at Resilio. So with that, how do I see things going? How do I see the forecast, if you will? And I think we'll still live, and we will always live in a partly cloudy world. The cloud it's very useful. It's going to be an integral part of a lot of IT applications. But over time, I think instead you'll see the fog creeping in. Slowly at first, maybe you won't even notice it. Maybe it comes in on little cat's feet. But before you know it, you're going to look around and there's going to be computing everywhere. It will be all around you. And hopefully BitTorrent technology will be bringing it all together. Thank you.